Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. It's Caitlin here from Florals.com with another Wild Whisper design team video. I'm working off the same type of layouts I was doing last week for Wild Whisper, so if you haven't seen that, head on over to the links down below where I share the last two coordinating layouts that go with today's layout. So this collection that I'm featuring today is called Farmhouse, and it's an adorable collection from Wild Whisper, very vintage, very Magnolia homes. If you guys watch HGTV, you'll probably get that sort of feel from it. But I really wanted to use it for this trip that we took to a sort of petting zoo place where you get to feed animals and be with them. So this is when we were feeding goat friends, which are adorable. And originally I thought I was going to use a sketch for this, but I don't think I ever find one that I really love. So I'm just looking through my sketchbook here to see what's available and see if there's anything that's really catching my eye. It's really hard sometimes to pick one out, like when I'm trying to do a video, so usually I try to pick it out beforehand if I plan on doing that. So I decided to ditch that idea and just kind of wing it. So I've really been trying to work on my paper layering, and I do a lot more on this layout than I normally do, which I think is great. I know some people struggle with paper layering, and I'm one of those people. So I actually get to use a bunch of the patterns from this collection from Wild Whisper, which makes me really happy because I like that it's staying with the same storyline here. So I'm scrapbooking all these photos from the same event, so it's really nice to have that same collection throughout this part of my album. So that makes it a little more cohesive and you can tell the stories from each of these pages go together. So I have a basic light colored pattern here, which is like a tile pattern, I'd call it. Maybe you'd find it on tile. And I cut that into a smaller rectangle so my photos would sit there. And then I also have this black pattern paper, which has a bunch of farm animal noises on it. And I definitely wanted to layer that underneath as well to give it some more contrast, since there's a lot of dark elements in my photo because of my outfit that I'm wearing, as well as a lot of elements on the other pages that are darker. So I thought bringing in that darker pattern paper would help a lot with that. And here I'm looking at the cut apart sheet, which I find one that's perfect, and it says the fun begins where the pavement ends, which was perfect. Although there is pavement in this park and zoo, I thought it was fun to sort of be with them, be able to actually interact with the animals there and feed them, and just sort of see them in their natural habitats on this farm. So that was really fun. I also pulled out a branding strip here that you'll see me use. I actually glue it down at the bottom of the page, which is a little bit off camera, which I didn't notice at the time. And I also used some washi tape later on to layer down there as well. So now I'm going to cut out that one piece I mentioned, and I also cut out another square off this cut apart sheet. And it's these little chicken footprints. And instead of using the actual chicken footprint, because that's my actual background paper, I decided to layer it underneath this sentiment, so it gives it that extra pop of blue, which matches the background paper, which is perfect. And I don't think I use any other cut aparts on this. Oh yes, I do. I end up pulling out the giant barn here, this giant red barn, and it's a great addition to this layout. I really like the pop of red on this specific 12 by 12 layout because it coordinates with the left hand page, which has that pop of red from the little pocket page insert that I made. And I'm just going to trim that out quickly. Nothing too fancy there, just trimming it so you can't see the border. I know some people trim with borders, but I'm someone who trims without borders. I tend to like that better, unless it's a very intricate image, in which I will trim it with borders to make it simpler. But for the most part, I usually try to cut right to the line. So it looks like so. So I did pull out my distress ink. I think this one's called Twigs or something like that. I'm not 100% sure. But I'm just using one of the light browns that I have in my stash and just inking the edges of all my papers. I just thought it gave it a more rustic feel, and it also just helped them pop from each layer to layer, especially with the lighter papers. It shows up quite a bit. And I accidentally over ink on one of the corners, and I just end up covering that with some of my embellishing because it was just a little too much distressing and inking for me. But of course you can always over ink to give a different sort of effect. It really depends what sort of look you're going for, but I decided to ink all of my elements here, which I think really helped pull it together as well. It's that continuity piece that you sometimes need on layouts. And I also make sure to ink some of my cut apart pieces because I don't want them to be the odd ones out. So if you're doing inking on a page, make sure to ink as many items as possible. Sometimes you can do it with your title, you can ink chipboard pieces, I would not recommend inking plastics or metals because the ink probably will just rub off on something you don't actually want it on. So just be careful about that. But inking papers and chipboard and cardboard and other porous materials is a great idea. So now that I have that down, I know I want my photos over here on this creamy paper. I just don't know if I want any other papers underneath them or if I want to add any other elements. So I'm going to glue the title piece to its corresponding layering piece and then put the little barn there, and you can see it's kind of coming together here. Again, a little bit off camera, which I apologize for, but I do have a branding strip at the bottom that also coordinates, which you'll see in the close-ups. What I decided to do is map my photos on some plain white cardstock. This is 65-pound cardstock for my stash, and I just do a little layer around those. They are on lighter colored paper to begin with, but I thought the white really helped them pop for the overall page because it's the only white element on the page besides the accents from the patterns. So I really think this helped try to pop them out and really give them a definition of an edge. So once those are trimmed out, I'm going to layer them in here, try to figure out where I want them in conjunction with my title piece, and just glue them down. Now you'll see I didn't ink these. I did think about it, I just thought that it would show up so much on the white paper that the clean and simple look that I wanted for my photos would no longer be there, so I decided to keep those plain and not ink them, mainly because they were going on a lighter pattern anyway. I knew it would show up pretty well, and I just didn't think that the distressing would look great. But of course you can always ink any layers you want and don't want on your pages. Here I'm using some of my thicker fun foam to mount my title piece, which again is from the cut apart sheet. And I'm just going to use some tape adhesive and liquid adhesive to make sure it stays in place, because I've had trouble before where it will not stay in place if you use just one or just the other. So it's definitely a combination for me for this. And then some regular adhesive on the back of my little barn. And those line up beautifully. And now I'm going to add a couple of little elements. I decided to use more of these wood buttons, which I used on my last layout, just to add a little pop of that wood veneer flair. But that's pretty much it for this layout. I have some close-up photos at the end, as well as more information over on the Wild Whisperer blog if you'd like to stop by. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and using the Farmhouse Collection. If you haven't picked it up yet, be sure to do so before it sells out, or be on the lookout if it's going to be restocked soon if pieces of it are already sold out. But I hope you guys enjoyed again. Thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe so I know what you like and don't like. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye!